Ever find yourself, like, longing for something more? A deeper connection, something truly meaningful in life.
Well, today's deep dive might just have the answer.
We're diving into noetic prayer.
It's a practice that's been around for centuries, also known as prayer of the heart.
It's all about tapping into this wellspring of peace and purpose, this kind of reservoir of, well, you'll see, that resides within each of us.
And what's remarkable is that this practice, it's not bound by any one tradition. It transcends cultures, even religions.
That's a universal language,
Right.
whispering to us from the depths of who we are.
Exactly. It's like a shared language of the soul. And for this deep dive, we have an incredible guide.
A letter written by Blessed Elder Joseph the Hesychast to a young spiritual seeker.
Someone perhaps a lot like you listening right now.
Now, this wasn't some dry theological treatise. This was a heartfelt, practical response. It was filled with wisdom from the elder's own life experience.
He lived this practice, truly lived it, for decades in the monastic communities on Mount Athos.
Mount Athos in Greece. This wasn't just theory for him, not at all. It was his lived reality.
Wow.
And in this letter, he doesn't shy away from the hard parts, the challenges, but also the incredible rewards that this kind of prayer can bring.
So it's the real deal, raw and unfiltered. But for those of us hearing about noetic prayer for the first time, what exactly are we talking about here?
At its heart, it's about connecting with the divine,
Okay.
but not just through words alone,
The term noetic itself, it comes from the Greek word nous.
which refers to the intellect, the heart-mind. It's about moving beyond the surface, beyond our fleeting thoughts and emotions.
To a deeper place of knowing, of being.
So it's prayer, but on like a whole other level.
Precisely. It's about engaging our whole being.
Our minds, our hearts, even our bodies,
Wow.
in this continuous conversation with the divine. And, the elder, he lays out this surprisingly simple technique.
Yet powerful for tapping into this deeper dimension of prayer.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. So where do we even begin? What's the first step?
The elder starts at the foundation, repetition.
He compares it to learning a trade, actually.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect to become a master craftsman overnight, right?
Yeah.
It takes that consistent practice, dedication, patience.
So it's like building a muscle, but a spiritual one.
Exactly. And the tool for this practice.
A short, powerful prayer.
Oh.
Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me.
And he emphasizes saying it constantly, especially at first. Don't let the mind wander.
Interesting. So no elaborate rituals, no visualizations, just this one simple phrase.
That's the beauty of it. Simplicity, focus.
The key, he says, is not getting caught up in trying to feel a certain way.
But to approach it with discipline, like an athlete training for a marathon.
Okay, I like that analogy. But what's the goal of this training? Where does it lead?
The elder describes it as this journey inward.
A movement of the prayer itself, from the tongue to the heart and even beyond.
Beyond.
He even mentions that as you practice, the prayer will start to feel sweet as honey.
Sweet as honey. Now that's an image. What do you think he means by that?
It speaks to a shift, you see.
As we delve deeper into the practice, it's not about forcing some artificial bliss.
But about experiencing this profound inner sweetness, peace, joy.
Arising naturally from our connection with the divine.
So it's not just a mental exercise, it's a deeply felt experience.
Exactly. It engages our entire being, mind, body, spirit. And the sweetness, this inner transformation, it's a taste of what this practice can bring.
That's fascinating. So we start with repetition, with this simple but powerful prayer. And as we go deeper, we start to experience this shift, this sweetness. But it doesn't stop there, does it?
You're right. This is just the beginning. The elder's letter, it goes on to describe this remarkable journey inward, a transformation that touches every part of our lives. He describes it as a progression, a journey of the prayer itself.
Okay.
It begins with the tongue, those initial repetitions we talked about.
Which then draw in the nous.
Okay, so the intellect gets involved, the heart-mind, as you called it before.
Right.
But then he talks about the prayer reaching the heart. What does that even mean?
It sounds almost like metaphorical.
It is more than just a metaphor. The elder, he really viewed the heart as this central point.
Not just physically, but spiritually, mentally.
Okay.
It's where, our deepest intentions reside.
Our deepest desires, where we connect with something bigger.
So it's not just about understanding the prayer intellectually, it's about it taking root, like deep down.
Exactly. And he doesn't pretend it's easy.
He talks about vigilance, fighting off distractions, temptations.
Right, because those inevitably come up.
Always.
So it's not always easy. There are like bumps along the road on this inward journey.
There are, but he reminds us we're not alone in this.
He says, God is the beginning and the end.
His grace is always present, guiding us, strengthening us.
It's that surrender, isn't it? Acknowledging that we can't do it all on our own.
Absolutely.
That we need help.
He even tells us to literally get up at night and pray if we have to.
Wow.
To keep that connection alive, that reliance on something greater.
But it's not just about, like, secluded prayer, right?
Right.
He's clear that this practice, it should touch every part of our lives.
In every part.
That's where his words, pray without ceasing, come in.
But how do we actually live that? It seems like a pretty tall order.
You know, for those of us juggling work, family, life.
He gives some concrete examples, actually.
Okay, I like those.
He says, when you see someone ill and sympathize with him.
When you see a widow, orphan, or the elderly, and you are charitable to them, then God loves you, and you also love him.
So it's about compassion, right? Our daily actions. Seeing kindness as an extension of the prayer itself.
Precisely. It's this beautiful thing, this interplay between the inner and the outer, the spiritual and, well, just life.
Right.
He's saying true prayer, true connection with the divine, it changes us from the inside out.
And it changes how we interact with the world. I love that.
That makes me think of his description of experiencing the divine. He says he acts like a subtle breeze in our minds.
And I love that because it's not this, like, overwhelming force, you know, it's this quiet presence.
And I know for me, I could easily miss that if I wasn't paying attention.
It's a beautiful image. And it makes you realize we need that stillness.
That inner quiet, just to perceive these subtle movements of grace.
But then he also says the divine is formless, unimaginable, and colorless.
Which I have to admit, kind of hard to wrap my head around. How do we connect with something we can't even imagine?
That's where trust comes in, I think.
Letting go of the need to, grasp it, to define the divine with our limited human intellect.
It's a mystery.
He's pointing us toward a mystery, something that can't be fully understood, just experienced.
So it's about surrender, opening ourselves up to something beyond our usual way of seeing.
Exactly. And he suggests one way we begin to access this realm, this beyond form realm,
is through a sense of compunction.
Compunction.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound, I don't know, particularly pleasant.
What does he mean by that? It does sound a little, I don't know, intense.
It's not about guilt or shame, like you might think at first.
Okay.
He's describing something else, this deep, profound gratitude.
Even especially when we really reflect on Christ's sacrifice.
So there's a sweetness to it,
Mm-hmm.
but also this recognition of suffering, of love that's beyond, I don't know, our ability to really grasp.
Exactly. It's in those moments, he says, that our hearts soften.
Our defenses they crumble.
And we're able to experience something deeper.
And that's where it begins. True transformation.
It's almost like, I don't know, that compunction, that gratitude and grief, it cracks us open.
Allows something greater to flow in.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like we're making space within ourselves.
For the divine to reside. And not through force or willpower.
But through surrender.
Yeah.
And love.
So it's not just about the words themselves, but the change that happens inside us as we live them out in our lives.
Precisely. And that's what's so inspiring, isn't it?
About this letter. He's not presenting something impossible.
Right. It's not this far off, you know?
This is a path, a practice it's available to anyone.
Even someone like me who gets distracted easily. Struggles to, quiet the mind.
Especially someone like you. Remember, he says it's a journey, not a destination.
There will be times when the mind wanders, when, life happens.
Distractions, right.
Exactly. That's part of it.
So what do we do then in those moments? How do we get back on track?
He gives some very practical advice.
Okay, good.
He says, when the nous takes it up, you stop saying it orally.
And then, when the nous loses grip of the prayer, let the tongue resume saying it out loud.
So it's like a dance between the mind and the mouth. This back and forth, gently, guiding ourselves back.
Exactly. It's about cultivating awareness, gentle persistence.
And he assures us it is impossible for him not to open unto you.
There's that trust again. Just showing up, doing the work, and trusting that something greater, it's meeting us.
And the rewards, as he describes them, they're immeasurable. Remember how we talked about the prayer becoming sweet as honey?
Yeah.
That's just a taste of the peace, the joy, the love that's waiting for those who keep going on this path.
It's powerful stuff to think that something seemingly simple as repeating a prayer could lead to that.
It might seem simple, but it's a practice that it involves everything. Our minds, our hearts, what we do.
It's a journey inward that it spills out into a more compassionate, more fulfilling life.
It really does touch everything, doesn't it? So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope our listeners really take away from this deep dive?
This letter, it's a gift, an invitation to a life transformed by prayer. The journey starts with a single step, just a willingness to, as he says, knock at the door of divine mercy.
I love that.
The path might be winding, might have its challenges.
But the rewards, both within and, well, in how we experience the world, they're more than worth it.
It's a beautiful invitation, and one that I really hope our listeners will explore. So, on that note, we'll leave you to your own reflections. Until next time, friends, keep diving deep.